What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Trapfish Aquatics. Today we're going to be finishing up the bottom of the 300-gallon aquarium using Pond Shield epoxy. Alright, so to do this we're going to need a couple different things. You're going to need your Pond Shield epoxy. You're going to need, per the instructions, you're going to need some alcohol, whether it be 99% isopropyl alcohol or denatured alcohol. And because we are currently in the quarantine for the coronavirus, if you've ever tried looking up isopropyl alcohol of any level during this time, you are not going to be able to get it. So I have here some denatured alcohol, so that's what I'm going to be using. You're also going to need some, for wood application, 60 grit sandpaper, so I've got that here. I have some mixing containers for mixing the epoxy, as well as some mixing sticks. And we also have some Bondo plastic scrapers, a couple little paint trays, and some paint rollers. So that's basically what we're going to need for this project. So let me show you what we're going to be doing. Alright, so first things first, what we have to do is we have to prep the surface of the aquarium as well as prep the trim. So basically what we have to do for the trim portion is I have to pre-drill all the holes that are going to be used for mounting hardware. That way the surface isn't epoxied and we don't damage the epoxy surface. So I'm going to pre-drill all the holes. I'm putting a screw every 4 inches on this. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to mark these out, pre-drill the holes, and then we'll set these aside for when we start the epoxying. And for the base of the aquarium, being the plywood, we have to sand that with 60 grit sandpaper to make sure that we get the best adhesion we can out of the epoxy. So with that being said, I'm going to start marking out and drilling the holes on the trim so we can get them set aside so we can sand down the surface of this and start mixing the epoxy. Alright, so the next step with this is going to be sanding down the surface of the plywood. And the reason for sanding this down is to create a good sticky surface for the epoxy to adhere to. So we're going to sand it down with 60 grit sandpaper, get it nice and scuffed up, and then we can mix the epoxy and get it poured on here, and then let it cure for 24 hours. So yeah, we'll get this sanded down, get it epoxied, and then we'll work on the sanding down and epoxying the trim framework. So let's get sanding. Okay, so the surface of the aquarium bottom is sanded down. And I did hit it twice with sandpaper. You guys probably only saw it once there because I'm not sure if the first video got corrupted or not because it did something weird. So sanded down pretty good. Now we have to clean the surface of the plywood off, remove all of the dust and debris. So I'm just going to do that with a shop vac. Just hook it up backwards. Okay. Yep. Alright, so the surface is clean. That's a pretty big splinter. Ow. Alright, so surface is clean. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to mix up our epoxy now and get it poured on here, get it spread out, and let it cure. So let me go ahead and get the epoxy and I'll show you guys what we're doing with that. Alright, so for the epoxy, it comes in two parts. You got part A and part B. You've got the epoxy itself and then the hardener. My epoxy, I chose the color black, but it comes in multiple other colors. I chose black just because I usually have black substrate, black background. It really doesn't matter if you're going to put substrate in there because it's going to cover it up anyway. But if I choose to go bare bottom with this tank, it'll still look dark, which is the color of substrate that I prefer. So you're going to need to get yourself some 99% isopropyl or denatured. I have denatured, and it comes with mixing instructions. So with this, there's two different ways you can apply it. There's a thicker way and a thinner way. I'm going to apply it the thicker way to try and get my 10 mil coating, which is what they recommend for waterproofing a pond or an aquarium, in one application. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to use half of what they sent me. I'm going to use 2 cups of part A and 1 cup of part B. Unfortunately, the mixing cups that I got only have ounces and milliliters, so I went through and did the conversions. So basically part A I'm going to need 16 ounces, part B I'm going to need 8 ounces, and for the alcohol I need 1 ounce, which for that it's 30 milliliters is 1 ounce. So I have a little dosing syringe here that goes 10 milliliters, so just 3 of these. So you take part B, you mix in the alcohol. Once you mix that in real good, then you take your part A and pour that into the part B mixture, mix that together, and then apply the epoxy. And it's going to dry in 20 to 30 minutes and then cure in 24 hours. So that's what we're going to be doing here. So I'll show you guys how to get this, mix it together and everything, and then do the application. So pretty straightforward process. There's just a little bit of reading and math that has to go into it. So I'll show you guys mixing this now. Alright guys, so the first coat is on. We got to wait about an hour and a half to inspect it and decide if we need to put a second coat on. I probably will, just because thicker is better in this scenario. So you want to try and make sure, since I'm having 300 gallons of water sitting on top of this, it is 100% waterproof. So we're going to wait about an hour to an hour and a half, and that'll give this time to tack up and cure, and then we can mix up the other half The first thing that I need to do is I need to make sure that I do the rails that go around the outside, which I already did 2 of the small ones with what I had left over from this coat. So I just have to do the 2 larger ones, and then I can apply the rest of it to the top of this, and then let it cure for 24 full hours, and then we'll be ready to put the silicone on it and get the tank put back together. So we'll just got to wait that hour and a half. So be back in an hour and a half. Alright guys, so the second coat of the epoxy is on the base of the aquarium, and as you can see it is a nice glass-like finish. Basically the minimum recommended thickness was 10 mil and I applied 20 mil just to make sure that it was in fact waterproof. So basically now we're going to let it cure. It's going to take 24 hours, but it's going to be well longer than that before I get back in here to get the silicone and everything on it. And the trim framework that goes around this is back here. You can see it resting here. That's drying as well, so it's all epoxied, it's all ready to go. The only thing left to do is assemble it and then put it on the tank, and I'm super excited for that, but the weather's not going to be great for about a week, so the chance of me getting to actually putting this together with the silicone and everything, we're probably looking at least a week or 2 before I can actually get it built. But that's okay, that gives this plenty of time to cure. I don't know if you can hear that, but it's starting to rain and we're getting a thunder and lightning storm, so I want to get back in my house and out of the garage, so that way I can get out of the weather and make sure this doesn't get wet. So thank you guys for watching Trapfish Aquatics. As always, links down in the description, and I will see you guys in the next video.